Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy is a 3D platformer game with puzzles, combat and exploration elements. It's currently in development phase and is created in Godot. With its cute 3D visuals and that classic gameplay feel, it's a prime example of how good a commercial game built in Godot can look like. I had the opportunity to speak with the developers of Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy. I have been able to ask them about their new game, and above all, I have been able to chat with them about their experience using Godot while developing this game. In this video, we're going to talk about why they choose Godot, what has worked well for them, what has worked poorly for them, what they would improve, and much more. Also, the developers who made this game told me they will be scrolling through the video comments. So if you've got any questions I don't cover, just drop them below. If you're interested in knowing the perspective of a professional studio that creates commercial games with Godot, stay with me and let's discover their experience developing Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy with the Godot game engine. Fanny Pack Studios is a studio based in Argentina, which proudly presents Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy as their debut video game. Their intention was to create a game that highlighted her own identity and had distinctive features of their nationality. The game's world draws inspiration from Argentina's national parks, with Redlands, the game's world, being inspired after the iconic Iguazu National Park. Initially, their intention was to create a small game, something compact in the Zelda style, but little by little they added elements such as platforming, a story, and what was initially going to be something small has become a complete commercial game project. I asked Pablo, the founder of Fanny Pack Studios, why did they decide to use Godot? Why not Unity or Unreal? I came across Godot while investigating different engines. I mostly used open source tools for my software development work, so I had a bias towards it. I started using it and became familiar with it, and realized how powerful it really was. Eventually, when Fanny Pack was founded, I had an intuition that Godot would do to Unity what Blender did to Maya. Once people realized that they weren't missing much going with Godot, the many advantages it being open source would outweigh the disadvantages, and people would start to switch. And when they did, the community will grow bigger and the software will become better and better. It was a bet, and I think it was the right thing to do. We also completely avoided the Unity fiasco, and we have the tranquility that it won't happen the same to Godot since it's an open source project. An important aspect to note about Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy is that it has been developed with the LTS version of Godot, that is, Godot 3. I asked Pablo about his assessment of Godot and what his experience has been regarding his work methodology. Since we are using Godot 3, I'd say the experience we had was a mixed bag. Its 3D capabilities are quite good, and if you have good artists, you can make awesome things, even realistic stuff. But on Godot 3, they clearly lag a tad behind Unity. I don't think that's the case in Godot 4. We also found ourselves lacking good tutorials and workflows for making a scalable architecture for 3D content. The built-in editor and tools like grid maps are not enough for building our 3D levels. We needed a good couple of months to reach a content workflow that was okay for us. But it had some upsides too. Godot being so easy to customize, it allows us to quickly develop tools that make our workflow a breeze in some areas. Pablo also told me that in his opinion, Godot has several advantages over other engines. For example, compared to Unity or Unreal, Godot is very lightweight, and it has a scripting language, which is GDScript, that is completely integrated into the engine. Furthermore, the node system is simple and easy to understand. This all suggests that opting for Godot as their game engine was a wise decision. But one thing that remains to be seen is how easy it will be to create the console ports. But we will dive deeper into that topic later in this video. Video game development always hides unexpected difficulties and challenges. I wanted to ask Pablo about the major difficulties they faced while creating their game and also get his opinion on Godot 4. However, since we're currently discussing challenges, let's take a moment to check out our video sponsor for today. Brilliant is an interactive learning platform for people of all levels that gives you the chance to improve your skills in math, algebra, programming, and more. Its course structure is designed to give you small challenges to solve, and if you have questions about one, you can always consult its solution to see how to solve that particular problem. In my case, the computer science course has helped me improve my programming skills and be able to create better algorithms for my applications, games, and other projects that I work with. Brilliant provides you with an enjoyable and consistent way to learn new skills and improve existing knowledge. You can register at brilliant.org/David Serrano to get a completely free 30-day trial. In addition, the first 200 users who register will be eligible for a 20% discount on the annual plan. Thanks to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Pablo told me the following about what was the most difficult thing when developing this game. Of the most complicated parts of developing Runa has been to ensure that the game doesn't break when changes are applied. That's directly related to the workflow and tools, but also emerges from the nature of the content in Runa, which is varied and non-repetitive. This means that there are a lot of moving parts that need to be taken into account. People on the team have to be vigilant and mindful of the changes they are doing and try to minimize side effects. Our main gripe with Godot has actually been the import of GLTF assets, which has been a little unreliable sometimes and has caused some issues. I believe that this has improved a lot in Godot 4, so that may not be an issue anymore. Other than that, Godot needs to be friendlier for non-developers. We need artists, game designers, QA and writers to be able to open the engine and do their job. I will say that currently the main thing that prevents that is the amount of side effects that working in the editor has. It's not as clear as it should what will be modified and saved when you are working in the editor, and non-programmers have difficulty dealing with that. Naturally, after hearing this, I asked him about Godot 4. He clarified that when they began developing the game, Godot 4 wasn't close to a stable release. So they kicked things off with Godot 3 and stuck with it, since doing a migration now is not an easy task. That said, they feel that had they used Godot 4 from the start, the game's quality might have been even better and their development process smoother. Continuing with the interview, one of the great curiosities that I have always had is whether people prefer to use GDScript or C#, and above all, why use one or the other. We mostly use GDScript, no C# at all. We thought it was simpler and more lightweight if we used GDScript, plus the tight engine integration, which saves some headaches. If something showed up that was performance critical and needed optimization, we would rather use C++ since most likely we wouldn't need to write that much code. This hasn't happened yet and GDScript has been plenty fast for our needs. We miss some creature comforts of other languages like Lambda functions and a comprehensive collection library, but that improves in Godot 4. I also wanted to know about the optimization of this game and the possible challenges they might have faced when performing this task. The primary challenges we have faced stem from our artists' lack of experience in producing art that integrates smoothly into a video game environment, and Godot has some tools for detecting that. Also, some problems have come up from Godot's physics, which work great most of the time, but in some edge cases it crashes the performance drastically, and we haven't been able to solve them but instead worked around them. One complaint I might have is the Godot's profiler, which doesn't show any relevant information unless your problem comes from GDScript. It would be nice to have a physics profiler, for instance, or Godot internal profiler, to know what your bottleneck is even if it doesn't come from your own code. One of the questions I like to ask professionals who work with a tool is to give their advice to all those who are starting out in that world. This is what Pablo tells us about what he would do if he were starting from scratch with Godot today. The main advice I will give is to test and build your workflow early. Try and build a prototype of the game using the tools that Godot provide. See if they support the kind of content you are trying to build. Export and import your assets as quickly as possible, even if the asset is not finished, to see if you find any issues. Think about building blocks. Try to reuse as much as you can without compromising your vision, but only after you have found a workflow that fits your content. Also about the latter, I wanted to know what the experience has been in their studio regarding the documentation, resources, and tutorials that can be found online for beginners. Godot documentation is great for an open source project. Most public parts and regular use cases are well documented, and the official reference is great to understand what almost every switch, knob, and button does. There are also tutorials for common use cases and starter projects. But if you stray a little away from what's common, you may find yourself a little lost. For instance, there's little information about how one will do procedural animation. It's not that the engine doesn't support it, but the features that allow that are not well documented and quite obscure. You may also come across some obscure issue and you may not find a good solution. But the community is usually great at responding to issues, especially if they affect quite a lot of people or if you provide information that helps reproduce it and fix it. We ran into an issue with physics which was solved in Godot 4. It wasn't backported to Godot 3 because it wasn't trivial. But one of the team members of Fanny did the backporting. We sent a pull request and now it will be fixed in 3.6. That's the magic about open source. You can dig deep in the code and solve the issue yourself if it comes to that. One of the most historically criticized aspects of Godot is its limited ability to port for consoles. I wanted to ask Pablo about this topic. We are in talks with a company to see if it will be viable to port to consoles, especially Switch. W for games seems like the right move. It should make porting really affordable and easy for Godot developers, and that's all that's needed. The future seems bright. The barriers that limited Godot's portability have been removed, and I believe it's just a matter of time until it is as easy as the other engines. Finally, I asked Pablo what is his opinion about the near future of Godot. Our bet is that Godot is going to become the de facto engine for low-mid-budget developers in the future. It's gonna keep growing and improving. It has a great base and a great community. And as the community becomes bigger, so will the development resources poured into it. It's always interesting to hear the opinion and perspective of other developers, and Fanny Pack Studios has certainly been very kind in answering my questions so that I can share their experience with all of you. You can check out the Runa and the Chaikurú Legacy demo right now. The link is in the video description below. Also, if you have any further questions about the Godot development experience for this game, please don't hesitate to drop them in the comments section. The Fanny Pack developers have offered to swing by and address any inquiries you may have. I hope you found this interview interesting. Hit the like button if you liked it and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Goodbye.